Joyce Carol Vincent. If you've never heard that name, you're about to remember it for the rest of your life. In January 2006, some bailiffs forced their way into a flat above a shopping center in North London. They were there because the tenant had stopped paying rent. The electricity was still running, the TV was still on, and the place looked like someone had just stepped out for groceries. But inside, on the floor, was a body, or what was left of one. It had been there for more than 2 years. The woman was Joyce Carol Vincent, 38 years old when she died. Nobody had reported her missing. Nobody had asked where she was. She had been lying there all that time, next to a bag of Christmas presents she'd wrapped. That's the part that always gets people, the gifts. Joyce was born in 1965 in London to parents from Grenada. Her mother died when she was 11, and her father wasn't very present, so her sisters took care of her. She wasn't a loner, but a normal, outgoing girl with steady jobs, a social circle, and a future that looked stable. In her 20s, people remembered her as the pretty one. She went to concerts, hung around the music scene, and even supposedly met Nelson Mandela once. Her friends thought she was doing well with a bright future ahead, but around 2001, things got a bit weird. She suddenly quit her job at Ernst & Young without warning or explanation and disappeared from the office world. A few months later, she was staying in a shelter for women escaping domestic abuse. Friends later said they believed she was hiding from someone. There were rumors about a violent relationship, and she stopped answering calls, avoided people she knew, and kept moving from place to place. Some thought she was ashamed, others thought she didn't want to be found. In 2003, she was living in a small flat above the Wood Green shopping city. It was a housing trust flat for victims of abuse. Around that time, she got sick and was hospitalized for a peptic ulcer after vomiting blood. She stayed for a couple of days and then was later discharged. That was in November. A month later, she was found dead in her flat. No one really knows what killed her. Her rent was still being partially paid automatically through housing benefits. That's why no one checked. The neighbors thought the flat was empty. Any strange smell got blamed on garbage bins. Her TV stayed on, her mail piled up, and for over 2 years she was there, dead, alone, in one of the busiest cities in the world. When bailiffs finally entered her flat in 2006, they found her remains on the floor, mostly skeletal. She had been gone so long that her sisters had already hired a private detective, but every lead had gone cold. Police found no signs of foul play or anything suspicious, and the case was closed quickly. Another forgotten life in a city full of people who rarely notice each other. After her identity was confirmed, the story hit the media and left people in disbelief. How could nobody notice that a dead body was lying there for almost 3 years? And yet, it happens more often than most people want to admit. Filmmaker Carol Morley made a documentary about her called Dreams of a Life, tracking down everyone who had once known Joyce, co-workers, old friends, ex-boyfriends, and every single one of them said the same thing. They thought she was fine. They assumed she had moved on, maybe found a better job, started fresh. The strange part was that everyone thought someone else was keeping in touch with her, but no one was. In the film, viewers get a clear sense of who she was. A warm, smart, funny young woman, someone people remembered as a shining presence. Even those memories, though, couldn't prevent her from fading out of sight. Musician Steven Wilson saw the documentary and based an entire album on her. He said what haunted him most wasn't just that she died alone, but that nobody noticed it. Joyce Carol Vincent had a family, friends, plans. But when she needed help most, she didn't reach out. And no one reached in. June and Jennifer Gibbons were twin sisters, but not like any twins you have ever heard of. They were born on April 11, 1963, at a military hospital in Aden, Yemen. Their parents, Gloria and Aubrey Gibbons, had moved from Barbados to the United Kingdom in the early 1960s, part of the Windrush generation. The family eventually settled in Haverfordwest, Wales, where the twins grew up as the only black children in their community, often facing ostracism and bullying at school. From an early age, June and Jennifer developed a language only they could understand, a sped-up version of Bajan Creole, which made them nearly impossible for anyone else to communicate with. Their parents and teachers struggled to understand them, and even speech therapy failed to help, leaving the twins increasingly withdrawn. They eventually refused to speak to anyone except each other and their younger sister Rose, and they became entirely isolated in school and in social life. To try to break their bond, they were sent to separate boarding schools, but the twins became catatonic and unresponsive when apart, making it clear that they would only function together. When they were reunited, they retreated into their bedroom and began creating elaborate stories and plays, reading them aloud on tape as gifts for Rose. Inspired by a mail-order creative writing course they ordered in 1979, they started writing extensively, filling diaries and producing novels, short stories, and plays set mostly in the United States, featuring characters with strange and criminal behavior. June wrote a novel called The Pepsi-Cola Addict, which was published through a vanity press using their pooled unemployment benefits, while Jennifer wrote stories such as The Pugilist and Discomania, many of which would only see limited release years later. As teenagers, the twins began experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and in 1981 they committed crimes including vandalism, petty theft, and arson. This led to their assessment by a psychiatrist and transfer to Broadmoor Hospital, a high-security mental health facility. In 1982, they were sentenced to indefinite detention under the Mental Health Act, and remained at Broadmoor for 11 years. During their incarceration, they were given high doses of antipsychotic medications, which sometimes left them unable to concentrate, but they continued to write diaries and participated in the hospital choir. Their case drew national attention after journalist Marjorie Wallace covered it in the Sunday Times, and later wrote the book, The Silent Twins. Over time, the twins developed an understanding that if one died, the other could live a normal life. They believed this so strongly that Jennifer eventually agreed to sacrifice her life. In March 1993, after being transferred from Broadmoor to the Caswell Clinic in Bridgend, Wales, Jennifer died suddenly of acute myocarditis, a sudden inflammation of the heart, shortly after arrival. There was no evidence of drugs or poison. June later recounted that Jennifer had warned her she was dying, and that the twins had been in a strange mood of acceptance about it. After Jennifer's death, June began speaking to the outside world, living independently near her parents in West Wales, returning to her community, and giving interviews to publications such as Harper's Bazaar and The Guardian. Her surviving family, including sister Greta, expressed anger at Broadmoor, blaming the hospital for neglecting Jennifer's health and ruining the twins' lives. June and Jennifer Gibbons' story has since inspired documentaries, television adaptations, plays, music, and podcasts, including the 2022 feature film The Silent Twins, starring Letitia Wright and Tamara Lawrence. Serena Chelsea McKay, who preferred to go by the name Serenity, was a 19-year-old Indigenous woman from Manitoba, Canada. Born on September 30th, 1997, Serena grew up in Winnipeg, but spent time in Pine Creek and George Gordon First Nations. She attended Sagying Anishinaabe High School, where she was in her final year. Known for her bright personality and close ties to family, she was loved by those around her, but none could have imagined what would happen to her that April. On the evening of the 22nd of 2017, Serena was last seen alive. Hours later, her family reported her missing to the RCMP in the nearby town of Powerview. Just 2 hours after the report, her body was found in Sagying First Nation. What made this case even more horrifying was that the attack had been filmed. 2 videos of the crime circulated on Facebook, one sitting online for 4 hours before being removed. In the footage, Serena could be seen bloodied and barely conscious, lying on the ground as she continued to be assaulted, while voices, male and female, taunted her. At one point, a voice warned her, "If you send anyone after me, I will kill you. I will fucking kill you myself." During the attack, Serena cried out, "I'm so sorry," though it was never clear what she was apologizing for. Later that evening, the younger of the attackers sent a Snapchat photo, smiling and covered in blood, captioned, "Just chilling." In subsequent messages, the suspect casually described breaking Serena's nose, claiming she had walked away seemingly fine, even though she was bleeding heavily. The videos, along with messages sent afterward, were key pieces of evidence in the investigation, helping authorities identify the attackers and understand what had happened. A pathologist would later testify that Serena likely died from hypothermia. Her injuries and the alcohol in her system had left her unable to seek protection from the cold, and by the time she was found, her body bore 67 separate injuries. The brutality shocked the community and drew national attention. Investigators quickly identified two teenage girls, aged 16 and 17, who had been former schoolmates of Serena. Both were arrested and charged with second-degree murder. During court proceedings, one suspect admitted in writing that the weekend of drinking had turned deadly, recalling her shock at realizing her involvement in a murder. In June 2018, one of the girls received the maximum youth sentence of 40 months in prison, followed by conditional supervision. She would later express remorse, claiming she never intended for her actions to lead to death. The older suspect was transferred to an adult facility in 2020, where her request for early release was denied, with the judge citing continued disregard for rules and lack of understanding of her crimes. Serena's community mourned for their lost. Her school held a healing ceremony for students and staff, and vigils were held with hundreds of people marching, drumming, and singing to honor her memory. At her high school's graduation ceremony, her empty seat was left with a red gown and diploma, and a scholarship was created in her name. Her funeral took place on May 1, 2017, at Westwood Church in Winnipeg. The exact reason why Serena McKay was killed isn't really clear. Some reports say it might have started from a fight over alcohol at a house party, but no one really knows what made the attack turn so brutal. Even years later, Serena McKay's death sparked outrage, with family and friends protesting reduced sentences and advocating for justice.